Welcome to my quick guide on all of the Desert Treasure 2 Demi-Bosses. Unlike Desert Treasure 1, you have the ability to complete Desert Treasure 2 in any order that you choose. So with that said, I will throw timestamps down in the description below so you can feel free to jump around to whichever Demi-Bosses you want to watch. But first up we have Jhallan, who is the Demi-Boss prior to Duke Sucellus. And this Demi-Boss fight in particular is incredibly easy because all you do is protect from magic and just run around the pillar in the middle of the room. In this fight there really are only a couple mechanics you need to be aware of. One, he will occasionally teleport you. And then two, if you do get barraged, a few shadows will start closing in on your tile. Just make sure you constantly spam click out from the tile you're currently standing on. Other than that, just keep your mage prayer up, pop a stamina, and then run around that pillar as fast as you can. And after about roughly 1 to 2 minutes, the assassin will spawn and capture him. Next up on the Demi-Boss list, we have Kasonde, and this one is definitely quite a bit more difficult than the last. Kasonde is the Demi-Boss you'll encounter prior to Vardorvis. Personally, I use the Blowpipe and Full Masori for this boss fight, but I also know the Bofa and Crystal Armor is incredibly effective. And then when it comes to mechanics, you'll protect from range and then try to stay out of melee range of him. He'll constantly keep shooting out green and orange hit splats onto the ground. Make sure you do not step on any of them. The orange ones will blow up and deal you roughly 15 damage, and then the green ones will venom you. So make sure you do have an anti-venom if you are not wearing a Serp Helm. Then for potentially his most dangerous mechanic, he has the ground pound effect, where he will basically slam a ton of tiles in a close radius of him. The best way to avoid this damage and block it is to put a pillar between you and the boss. Depending on your luck and when he uses this special attack and how filled up the room is, occasionally you will just have to tank it, so just make sure you stay high health at all times. Then moving on, we have the mysterious figure fight, who has been trying to kill you throughout the entirety of the quest every time you deposit an icon. And this fight itself is pretty straightforward. I ended up just wearing Masori and a Blowpipe once again, and then I also brought a Fang because he does have a prayer mechanic where he'll switch protection prayers. Just make sure you're always countering your attack style with his protection prayer, otherwise you'll do reduced damage. The only special attack you really need to be aware of is he will occasionally de-spear you and then throw a big purple magic spell on top of your head. It's incredibly easy to avoid, just make sure you're spamming on a different part of the room every single time you notice you get speared. Apart from that, this fight is kind of just rinse and repeat with that same process. I protect from range the entire time and I really didn't take all that much damage. And then finally we have the final boss fight, which is essentially just 4 demi-bosses you'll fight back to back. First up, you'll fight the Forsaken Assassin, and I believe this fight is exactly identical to the one you have in Secrets of the North. In order to damage him, you'll need to lure him onto the white clouds, and if you do accidentally run him over a pink, he will heal himself. I used Protect from range and just face tanked him for the entire fight, and the only other mechanic he really has is he'll occasionally throw out vials on the tile you're currently standing on. Just make sure you constantly keep moving, otherwise you'll take a big hit. Then next up to fight we have Ketla the Unworthy. I can blowpipe and protect from range for this fight as well, and honestly I really enjoyed the mechanic that Ketla has. Every so often she'll multiply into a few different little minions that all have 1 HP. If there are too many, just make sure you kill a few off because they will start to stack up some damage on you. Just make sure you always keep at least 2 alive. After killing a couple of the minions so you don't take too much damage, make sure you stand on the far side of one of them, putting a minion between you and Ketla. She'll throw out an attack that kind of looks like a red spell that otherwise is completely unavoidable damage that will do you somewhere in the mid-30s. But if you do have one of the minions between both of you, the minion will just take it and die instead. There is a chance she'll do this special twice before multiplying again. So if you do kill one of the minions, just make sure you go stand behind another one before she multiplies the next time. For the third final demi-boss, you'll have Kasonde the Craven, which is essentially just an upgraded version of Kasonde that we already fought earlier, with relatively similar mechanics. He'll continue putting spots on the floor that you'll want to avoid. This time they'll just all be pink instead of green and orange. The biggest difference being that his ground pound mechanic will cover 75% of the room now, leaving you just one triangle to safely stand inside of. The one nice thing is there is a good few seconds where the shadows show up on the ground, giving you some time to avoid them. And then one other tip, if you do pull Kasonde a few tiles south out of the center of the room, you'll see a little animation where he runs back to the center before he calls in that attack, so you will know when it's coming. Outside of that, you do the kill just like you did the original Kasonde prior. Protect from range and then just try to kite him around the room and avoid as much melee damage as you possibly can. And then for our final demi-boss of the quest, we have Persten. For Persten, I just blowpiped him and protect from magic. He has a similar special to Nightmare where he'll put black circles on the ground and lightning bolt you if you are standing on any of them. So just make sure you stay moving throughout this fight. And then occasionally he'll spawn a portal. Just make sure you kill that portal as fast as you can. Otherwise, quite a few abyssal leeches will come out of it, dealing and stacking up a ton of unnecessary damage. If you do happen to let 1 or 2 of the abyssals spawn out, make sure you take care of those before you get back onto taking out Persten. But with that, that is my quick guide on all of the Desert Treasure 2 demi-bosses. Other than that, good luck on your guys' Desert Treasure 2 completion, and I'll catch you in the next video.